Well, listen, yes it is. That is one tough act to follow. Boy, oh boy. There's been a lot of applause and just a lot of recognition of a lot of accomplishments. But when I think about those accomplishments, I know better than that. Sometimes luck is defined as when preparation meets opportunity. But I agree with that, but it also comes with people around you, people that support you all your life. And this group's done that. There's many people in my life that aren't here today. I can't share that with, but I want you to know that every one of you has contributed to my success. And I really stress that. I really appreciate being recognized, but wouldn't have done it without this group and a lot of people throughout my life. I just wanted to pass that out. If I've got a list of items, I wanted to make sure that I recognize the people. Want to have a few laughs. Tough act to follow. Eddie, Larry, Gail just did an outstanding job. I really appreciate you guys. Eddie, you really broke the ice, so that's a good way to start the night. But first of all, this has been a great day. I just want I want everyone to give some applause. I can't name all the people on the events committee, but they've just done a lot of work. Just an outstanding job making this a great day. So everybody that's on the events committee, I'm not going to try to name all their names, but I want you to give their hands because they've done a class 1 job. So I really appreciate it. John Catone, running around the golf course. You've been part of, once again, for a lot of events over time. So I really appreciate you. You've got to see it. Almost as many things as I have, and you've been a part of the organization, so I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
So I'm going to pick people out of the crowd. You need to be recognized. This event's for me, but you know what? This group needs to be recognized, and I'm going to do that. Marilee Walker, remember when you attended the ribbon cutting ceremony for when we built the Pean facility? And you're just supportive once again all those years. Just recently I was going through some stuff in my office and I found that old Livingston County News article when it was the original crew of management staff. It was before I was hired. And you were in that picture with Jack Morgan and just recognizing the company, and it made me think of the day. And I think I know Larry brought up politics, but I think this is bigger than any political rally that I'll ever participate in down in Oregon. So I appreciate that. And all that the town has done for us. And we've got a lot of work to do, but I know with your support and this local community that we're going to get it done. So I want to thank you, thank your efforts, and thank the town on Monday.
Thank you.
So give her a hand, please. Laura Lane made it tonight. I'm glad to see you, Laura. We don't run into each other as much as we used to, but I remember Laura worked tirelessly for that ribbon cutting ceremony, and some state officials, namely the Lieutenant Governor and her staff, they were scheduled to come to that ribbon cutting ceremony. We all knew how important that was for the local community. And then there was questions whether they were going to be able to fit us in their schedule. And Laura was a bulldog. She made sure that it happened. And at that time, for the Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul is now the governor. Good luck getting Kathy Hochul to Monday today. but you made that happen. That was a huge event. What an event that was, that ribbon cutting ceremony. We had so many local leaders there, and that was a huge deal for Monday. It was stressed the company, but we were recognized in our industry substantially more when we built that facility, and it was a $15 million construction project. It was just huge, and it really took the efforts of just so many people, and being able to see that come to pass, and you organize that event. It's an event I won't ever forget. You can still get on YouTube. You can still see all the speeches, and sometimes when I want to feel good, I do that. So, thank you to Laura Lane. Patrick Keating is here today from 5 Star Bank. We've got some history with this organization. I remember early in my career, basically we had one bank. It was a cooperative bank. It was located in Washington, D.C. Really one bank that wanted to recognize our company, our employee-owned structure, and which totally terrifies most banks. And but we really needed to grow. We needed someone that could grow with us. And at the time, we put out a request for proposals to numerous banks in the area, and because we thought somebody's got to be interested in us. And one bank took us seriously, and that was Wyoming County Bank, which was the forerunners of what became 5 Star. And those guys obviously had done a lot of agricultural financing. For them, it would make sense to diversify, get more into manufacturing portfolios. And those guys came to us. They not only invested in us, they struck a deal. They created financing packages that gave us a chance, gave us a start. They could have, had higher interest rates and different programs that really could have stressed us more than they did. And they could have justified that with risk. But the roots of 5 Star Bank and Wyoming County Bank are a huge reason why our company's been successful. And I have to admit, in later years, I enjoyed being contacted. Other reps from other banks would see me at local ball games, see me in the community, and boy, they wanted to be my buddy. They wanted to talk. And I was never rude to them, but I let them know that everyone had a chance. But 5 Star Bank was the one, and at that time, Wyoming County, they're the ones that came through, and they still are with us today. So I really appreciate, Patrick, your organization, and just share that with your team, because you guys are a big part of us. I can't let Patrick go right now, but I just want to recognize you have 2 very dedicated employees, guests of mine tonight. So you know Sydney, but just wanted to let you know you have another rising star in your organization. My daughter Sharice over there. There was no way I was going to let that one. All I can say is, if I was still once again and I needed somebody with her background, I would hire her. So she's a class one individual, and
we're lucky to have her.
Just wanted to pass that out. And one more thing, I want to show her dedication to being here today. My grandson, her and Jim's son, 6 years old, he's one of the best athletes in Springfield. He had a flag football game today, undefeated team, the last game of the season, the last game before the playoffs. And Jim and Sharice both thought it was important that they showed such dedication to be at this dinner that they sent Jimmy to the game. He didn't sit home, he played ball. They sent him to the game. Other grandparents, I believe, helped them out, but just wanted to show her dedication to this event. So again, thank you for all that your organization does. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
I've got quite a few pages here, so bear with me. Here we go. Look around here. David Hastings, where are you? Oh, I see you. David Hastings, longtime company attorney. David started, he was with us, he was with an organization called Ralph Mersbach. He was the corporate attorney at Once Again when I started. David ended up really looking over our account, working for Ralph Merzbach, but Dave made the decision to move on, start his own firm. And so the company had to make a decision. And I sat down with management staff, even talked to the board, and thinking I was going to have to sell because I really wanted to. I'd worked with Dave, kind of grew up with Dave, kind of in our industry, and I really wanted to move ahead. Dave was moving on to his organization. I wanted to move on with him, and I thought I was really going to have to do a sell job, and because Ralph Merzbach's office had always been our attorneys, and much to my surprise, I didn't have to sell anything. They had seen the quality work that Dave had done, and they had worked with Dave, understood how much he cared about our company and how much extra effort he did. So that was easy to sell. It was like I go in with a big plan, talking about all the tactical efforts we needed to be and how important Dave was. And it was like, no big deal. We need to go with Dave. So I want you to know that, Dave. But we haven't talked about that. And we're damn glad you're still an attorney. And I think back, Dave has helped me through a lot of corporate issues. And I remember back, we had a claim made against us. It was a kosher certification, and there was a kosher certifying group in New York City called the Orthodox Union. And we also had a branding on our label. It was because we wanted to call out that our product was unsweetened, no sugar. So the Orthodox Union, their symbol is an O and a U, and our unsweetened, had kind of a circle and a U, but it clearly said unsweetened on it. We weren't trying to steal the Orthodox Union symbol. But, we got the claim was made against us. It was a serious situation. Dave got me prepped, and we went to New York City. We went to that big courthouse, and there we had another rep from Buffalo, and they put me through some preparation and coaching, because we were going to have to talk to a big judge and prove our case that we weren't trying to steal their logo. We'd already made preparation to modify our symbol somewhat to ensure that there wasn't any confusion by consumers. And I'll never forget that, that the Orthodox Union came in. They had attorneys on staff just ready to beat us up. And then we were in chambers, and then the judge came in. And it was just remarkable how the conversation went, because he basically lectured those guys from the Orthodox Union. Why are you picking on this little company from Dundee? They're just trying to make some nut butter and not add a lot of sugar to it. And these big, hefty Orthodox Union guys, they look like little mice sitting in their chair after that judge gave them a lecture. So. And I remember, after he gave him the lecture, he wanted to make sure that we were going to make our modifications, because the Orthodox Union, they even wanted us to take our product off the shelf. It was just crazy. But on the way out, he said, I think I'm going to have to try some of that once again product. And for whatever reason, I said, well, just make sure you try the unsweetened. So, on the way out, Dave wanted me to take his picture as well. We got our picture taken on the steps of that courthouse in New York City that's on Law and Order, the TV show. Dave always felt like a real attorney after he got that. So all I can say is we went back to Rochester. I never saw that the Law and Order TV show picked up that episode, but that was their loss. So thank you, Davey. Okay, Chris and Kelly Shea, they had to leave today, so I wasn't able to talk about them today. But you know what? I told Miranda, I said, when she told us that, she told me that I was going to golf on a golf team, I said, well, they're taking care of me. My last retirement party, they're going to give me the ringers to golf. And those guys did good. They've got memberships at Oak Hill. They can play golf, no doubt. But I tell you what, Larry, between my birdie putts and that shot today, but they wouldn't have won the golf outing without us today. But no, they've, so I wanted to point that out, and it's too bad Kelly Shea isn't here, because Eddie and Larry, Kelly's got some real good Gordon Porter stories. And for those that don't know, Gordon Porter was an old CFO at, once again, he was quite a character. So someday when we're out with Kelly again, he's got a bunch of them. So I would have to tell some tonight if he was here. But thanks to those guys. Sam Gullo, he's a guy from Perry. I don't believe he made it here today. Sam, you know, I want to recognize Sam because we were busting at the seams when we had all our warehousing in one day, and you know, we were using the old seed room for warehousing, and we needed a warehouse. And at the time, you know, it just, you know, I wasn't going to, you know, as far as a capital investment, as far as sinking money into a building for warehousing. If we're going to build a new building in one day, we're going to be manufacturing. We're going to be making money in that. So we were looking all around the area, Livingston County, Wyoming County, and we were about ready to start entertaining, you know, some other warehouse locations, maybe Rochester, Buffalo. But all of a sudden, you know, Sam Gullo had connected with him, connected with some county reps in Wyoming County, and they said, you ought to take a trip over to the old Champion building. So we went over there, and you know, they had a double mezzanine on there, a second story. And I'm looking around, you know, piles and piles of old ball uniforms. They had some professional uniforms I would have liked to get my hands on. They were off limits. But in any case, you know, Sam said, well, don't worry, Bob, we can get all this mezzanine. And I said, look, I need a high bay. I need to put racking in here. I need to store material. And he says, give me a chance, you know, give me a chance. I'll get all that mezzanine material out of there. And I said, well, that's fine when you do that, but we'd like some cold storage as well. So Sam, working with the county, got some grants, allowed us to get some cold storage in Perry. And, you know, we started out with just a small section of that building, but now we've taken on more space. And Sam would like to sell that building to us, but Sam or Chad, don't let him talk you into that one. Let's keep leasing.
We like it.
But that's what we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. At the time, it was very concerning as far as the warehousing, but it's a big part. A big part of our company and allowed us to be successful. Sam and his son Adam Gullo has been very, very helpful. Okay, Steve Bondurant. Steve, you know, I think of all the work you've done. I remember when I came to the company, you know, we wanted to have a positive branded image, and you know, you looked at the raccoon on our jar, and it looked like one of those rabid raccoons. It gets in your garbage when you go to the campsite. So how appealing is that, right? And so, you know, working with Steve throughout the years, we've made those updates. You've worked with our marketing team, and really been very helpful there. So I wanted to recognize you. I thought you might get to retire before me, but that's the way it goes. So thanks for all you've done.
Well, thank you, Bob.
Terry Griswold, really appreciate you coming out. Terry, I think you remember, you know, back in the days, you know, the front office of our building where Kate is, and there's the HR director's office, and where Miranda is. That used to all be open. You remember coming out when we had those ESOP meetings, and yeah, I think there was probably 18 or 20 of us at the time. And every year we'd have those participant meetings, and you know, now we got to rent the fire hall or have them in Perry. So you know, the company's grown, but you've been with us all the way. So I appreciate Empire and just your history with the company, and just remember me in the next 5-year evaluations, because I can use your help. All right, so thanks for coming today. Okay, Natalia Dottori, and I probably pronounce your name. I always call her Natty, but Natty's history with the company has gone back a long, long way. One of my favorite stories that Natty tells, Lloyd will remember this, you know, because there was a time, you know, basically the U.S. farmers turned their backs on organics over the years. So, you know, this was back when the founder was here, Lloyd was here, so they were looking at other sources of organic peanuts. And I always remember that story of, you know, you took Lloyd and Jeremy down to see the peanut crop, and you talk about walking through the field, and Lloyd asking you, why are we walking through this field? Why don't we drive the truck to the peanut field? And you say, well, this is the peanut field. It was full of weeds, had to be all tilled up, but so the first year I was on the board when I heard those stories, but the second year you guys turned it around, and that was huge. That was huge for our company. Without your help and assistance, we wouldn't have had the success with organic peanut butter that we have today. And I really appreciate your efforts going back that far. You know, we build upon that over the years. We had a meeting in Panama years later, and we talked about being able to take over the organic peanut butter industry in the U.S. And anybody that bought anything in a plastic jar, you know, you were going to supply the peanuts, and once again was going to make the peanut butter. Well, we haven't quite accomplished that, but it's huge this year. This year we got a project, and it's like some of my other projects. They're not always on time, and I appreciate our board of directors understanding that over the years. But we are going to produce some organic peanut butter in a PET jar, plastic jar, in 60 ounce, and it's going to be in the marketplace. So it did happen. A lot of it had to do with you know, and it goes back to those early days. It goes back to planting organic peanuts in Argentina, and some of those meetings we had in Panama, you know, and we just sat a couple days and we just crunched numbers. You know, it was all open books. You know, we looked at the cost of agriculture, we looked at the cost of transport, and we figured it out. And we're going to be a force to reckon with, and it's because of people like you, your organization, and for a group of Argentina suppliers to work with a small company in one day, and we're going to be successful and be a force to contend with. So just appreciate everything that Maddie, and make sure you pass on my thanks to Renato and Adam as well. So thank you. All right, you know, Eddie Solback and Larry, thanks for breaking the ice tonight. It was great. You guys, you know, there's something about Stone Construction Equipment. You know, you look at our financial record, and you can look at that as a failure. But there was something special about that company, and sometimes it's tough to define with words. But you know, it's when I think about what I learned from the people there, you know, the Chuck Liviers, the Bob Fiends, and all that crew, you know, the leadership, the dedication, the camaraderie that we had there will never end. And we get together now, and it's as if there hasn't been any time passed. There just was something special about that group, and you guys were a big part of that. I was happy that you could join me once again, you know, kind of share that success in another organization. But really appreciate your efforts and everything that I learned in those days at Stone, and it was a big part of what made me the leader that I am today. So you guys understand that, and just appreciate you over the years. So thank you. Okay, so this next one might be a little tough, but there is a guest here today that in my opinion right now, is the very most important guest that could be here tonight. And I know this will be a little tough, but Vicki Carlin. Your husband, who is unfortunately has deceased, and he's no longer with us. But when I was a 11th grader in high school, I didn't know your husband, but I was on a basketball team, and your husband went out for the team his senior year. It was the first time he played basketball. And I was on the team playing ball, and played for a coach. Coach was tough on me, but during that first part of the year, I just wasn't getting any playing time. And at the time, I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. but that wasn't the case. There was a scenario where that coach was being tough on me, and by the end of the year, I was playing ball for him. But that wasn't what was most important about that season. I have a picture in my office to this day that reminds me of that basketball team. And it was because of my friendship. When I wasn't playing basketball, I was on the end of the bench with Darren, and we struck up a friendship. And it was because of that friendship that over the years, we were friends. After when he went in the Air Force, we were golf buddies, and we struck up that friendship because I wasn't playing basketball at the time, but I was on the bench with Darren. And it was because of that friendship that years later, when he was working for Once Again, and they needed a board member, and I was just minding my own business at Stone, your husband thought highly enough of me that he gave me a call, and he says, Bob, we're thinking of becoming a 100% employee company, own company. He says, you've worked for Stone, you have some knowledge of employee-owned companies, people in the community know you, you've got some education, but it was because of your husband that was willing to give me a shot, to be able to give my name to the founders of the company and say, hey, look, I think this guy can fill a board position for the company. If I didn't know Darren Carlin, I don't think I'd be here today. In fact, I know I wouldn't be here today. It was because he saw something in me. He saw something in me that I'll forever be grateful for. And without that friendship, if we'd gone our separate ways, if our coach played me more during the season and I just hadn't spent as much time with Darren, we hadn't struck up that friendship, I wouldn't be here today. So that's why you're the most important guest. So I just want you to know what Darren did for my life, and I'll never forget it. And just little things like that happen in life, and it's events like this. This is the importance of the events. It's not the success, it's not the money we've made, it's not the amount of sales that once again, it's situations like this that have changed people's lives that really make the big difference. So thank you, Vicki, for coming. When I found out you had some different travel plans, and I found that you were going to be here, that made my day. When I found out you were going to be here, and I could share that with you, because I didn't share that with you to date, and a lot of people in this group needed to hear that. So thank you for coming tonight. Okay, Mr. Lloyd Kerwin. Lloyd was on the board. He was one of the decision makers. Darren brought me in, but Darren was along with the founders of the company. He was on the board when I first started, and Lloyd was critical in recruiting me. I'm not going to get into the story, but people had asked me about the position in the company, and I turned it down. We went through quite a cycle before I finally took it. But Lloyd was key in my recruitment. Won't forget that. But most importantly, what Lloyd did, there was a fair amount of turmoil in the company. There was some changeover in my position. And Lloyd, you kept the company together. Without you, there wasn't anybody in that company that was going to keep the company focused on the business in general. And I don't think that's been shared before. In the absence of the general manager, you were the general manager, and you held that company together. If you hadn't been there, I don't know that we'd be here today either. So I just want you to be appreciated for that. I learned more from you than anyone else in this company when I started. You taught me a lot about the supply chain. Still using the same sort of pricing spreadsheet that you gave me way back then. Still using a different form of that. There's been some additions added to it, but just want to share that with you, and just your ability to keep those people organized and working towards a common goal, because there wasn't, and you know that, there wasn't anybody else who was going to do it. So I just appreciate you holding down the fort and allowing a guy like me to come in and kind of take a lot of the success and, you know, a lot of the positive comments and just and some of the glory, but without you holding the fort together, it wouldn't have happened either. So thank you for that. You know, I won't, you know, I've talked about the founders of the company. You know, we have a sign in front of the main facility that the founders made lives better. I don't think anybody will doubt that. You know, I wish Connie and her daughter could be here tonight, but I just want everybody to know the founders of the company really took on a huge financial risk before we started, and I could have an evening speech just talking about the founders of the company, but just want everyone to know how grateful I am to them. They treated me like a son, and you can kind of get choked up about it when somebody that doesn't really know you too well, but all of a sudden they adopt you as if you were their son, and just takes you in and just wants to feed into you and just wants you to be successful. And that's what they did for me, and I'll never forget that. And so I'll move on. I don't want to dwell on the founders, but they were foundation to the company, and the people that have been around a while understand that. David Burns left, but you know, I appreciate the board of directors over the years, the external board members. They definitely have supported me in the past. You know, I've been on my job 18 years as CEO. You know, look around, see how often that happens anymore. And I never took that for granted. I never took it for granted that, you know, I'm an engineer. I've worked hard, shown a lot of dedication, but there's a lot of reasons to be looking for other credentials in my position. Somebody with an MBA, somebody that has more of a business background, somebody that was more of a polished communicator. Just a lot of reasons. The company has been successful. Well, let's face it, we haven't had the success in the last 5 years that we had previous to that. So, but the board has stuck with me. Now they have a chance to correct all those or improve upon all those, and I will support them 100%. But I do appreciate the external board members. And hey, look, 18 years is a long time, and I don't take that for granted. And just want to be able to show my appreciation for our board of directors over the years, and that starts with Urban Kroll all the way up to the current staff. But you remember Urban, don't you, Lloyd? But so I want to start talking about, you know, employees a little bit, and I've grouped these together, but I just want to group them together to be able to kind of talk about the importance of what they've really brought to our organization. But Gail, I just want to thank you again for all the kind words you shared. But when I think of, you know, I call them some of the old timers, some of the people that have really gone through a lot of trials, sometimes in their personal life, and sometimes at once again. But really, Gail, I think of you, Melissa Duke. Where are you? Melissa Duke, you. If I talk to you about working in the Beehive office, you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to say anymore, but it was a different time, and you know the difficulty of that, and you withstood it, and you stuck with it. We stuck with the organization, so I appreciate that. Gail, there's always been turmoil once again at one time. You know, it's a great place to work. We all enjoy it, but we're people, right? We're human beings. We don't always get along, and you've stuck with it as well. And I want to group, you know, Pete Mellon. Where are you, Pete? Pete Mellon is, he's a guy that hasn't been with the company as long as maybe a Melissa or Gail, but he's one engineer in a company, and I'm the only other engineer that he can confide in sometimes. And Pete has taken on a lot of responsibility and just a lot of criticism, because, you know, I'll stick up for the engineers, right? But there's a lot of variables that you have to take into account with a process. Sometimes it doesn't always work great the first time. You need time to figure it out. So Pete, I know you've been under the gun a lot. I think I remember when we had that when we had that peanut butter ribbon cutting ceremony, you literally were getting that pail line running basically seconds before the tour started. And you pull it off, and I just appreciate that, because there's a lot of times we fall under scrutiny, a lot of criticism from fellow employees, because everybody wants to do well. That's what it's all about. People want to do well. But I think Gail, you, Melissa, and Pete, you've been under a lot of scrutiny, marketing, crazy things happen in the office, engineering, manufacturing problems, and I know it hasn't been for lack of focus or desire. You've been responsible. You've been held accountable. You take responsibility, but you don't give up. All three of you. So thank you. Now, you know, it's been mentioned a lot about my career being an engineer, but a lot of people know this, some people don't. I actually started the first 5 years of my career working in production, and I worked for a company during the summers, Robeson Appliances. It was over in Cast Isle, but I worked in Rochester for 5 years. I was running Acme Gridley screw machines, and you can look it up on Google. And it was a machine trade, and I was on the floor working when it was 95 to 100 degrees, and just working a tough job. And I'll never forget, you know, when I used to, because I had some engineering background, I would basically turn in a lot of jobs and a lot of job layouts. I'd turn them into engineering. And I remember we had a long hallway in the company I was working in Rochester. And I'd walk by down the hallway, I'd walk by the CEO's office. It was a fairly small company, the financial person, personnel, HR at the time. And I used to think to myself, I'm 20 years old, what could these people possibly be doing for 40 hours a week? You know, here we are, we're out sweating it out, 95, 100 degrees in the summer. And these people are sitting in their office doing what? So I think, you know, and I know how tough of a job it is working in that manufacturing environment, albeit I haven't done it in a long time, but I know how tough it is. And we don't make a sale, we don't make a customer commitment without all your efforts. And I really appreciate that. When I think of the Billy Learns, the Michael Berries, Alicia, Bethany's, you know, why don't we do this? Everybody is currently working in the warehouse or working in production. Could you stand up? Could you stand up? You know, I really appreciate you guys coming out tonight, and I really appreciate your efforts. And it doesn't get recognized enough, and I'll take accountability for that. You guys put in the extra effort, and the people that proceed to do the work production, you know it. I want you to take that back with you and just express to others. I really do appreciate it. I know what it is to work on the floor. I know what it is not to be recognized, and I just really appreciate everything that you guys do. It's critical to the organization, and could we give these guys a big applause? So, you know, in those are the people currently working in production. One of the things I'd like to do the most, we'll bring in potentially new customers, CEO candidates, all sorts of people from the outside world. And one thing I like to do is I really like to brag up the people that started on the manufacturing floor and now have moved up and done other things for the company. there is not anything more satisfying to me than that. And we've got a whole bunch of people, and it just makes me proud. I really get a kick out of that, of all the people that, and it's really about their commitment. They came to the company without any promise of anything. They just wanted to be part of our company. They wanted to be able to be in the local community. They wanted to make a difference. And there was no guarantees. I think Brandon Underwood, his transition, Frank Lou, Jake Rowley. What a ride it's been, huh, Jake? The only guy that's been employed more than me, longer than me, is this guy with a big red shirt. He's a big guy, big stature, but he's got a big heart too, and he's a great guy. Kim Moriarty, I remember how hard you worked to get into the company, and you never gave up, And if asked to do so, you'd go out and do it again. Miranda Sanford, Ryan Nugent, Zach Tallman, Jason Montgomery. What a ride it's been for Jason. He was production. I remember coming in on second shift, and we were trying to control the temperatures of the butter and backing off the grind plates and trying to make the smoothest product we could, and we had to shut things down to meet the customer need. And to see a transition from that, work in the warehouse, and now being the IT general of our company, and just what a positive experience that's been for you, but how powerful that is as far as the expertise you have for the organization going forward. Kathy Kemp, I can't let this one go. I remember Kate had an interview with the company, and she calls me up. I've known Kate my whole life. She's been friends with my wife forever. And she called me up and she said, Bob, I don't want any special favors. But I just want to be prepared for this interview. Can you help me out? And I thought, well, if you don't want any special favors, what do you call the president? And I gave her some advice. And to me, I just stressed. I said, you're a community person. You love this place as your hometown, and you just try to impress the people on that you're all in. You're all into this sort of story. Brandon used to talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
I used to say that a lot, and that was my advice to Kate. I gave her some other advice too, but we're sworn to secrecy on that topic. But no, you know what? I'm retiring. I can tell. Because it was important. It's important to the organization. That any sort of favoritism is not important. So she did agree that it probably wasn't a good idea to say that we graduated from high school together and she was good friends with my wife. No reason to bring that up. But you know what? I think we'll all admit. What a great job Kate does, and how glad we are to have her at the company. All the things that she does on the side for everybody, and we're just glad she'll be here. She's here. I told her to follow me out the door, but she's not listening to me. So that's to your benefit. So thanks, Kate. Chad Snyder, it took you a long time to make the decision to come to once again, but you finally did it. And all Chad tells me is, Bob, I should have come to once again a lot sooner. I tried to tell you that.
I know you did.
You wouldn't listen. But Chad's one of my Little League ball players. When I look around the crowd, Gail mentioned sports. I want to get a picture. Mr. Moriarty here, Chad, and my brother were ball players on the cards. And I know we won a lot of ball games, and I'm not sure if all three of you were on the team, but Jeff Howe is still, every time he sees me, he complains about you guys playing the game of your life and beating his team in the championship game. And we did that. They were undefeated that year. They thought they were going to mow through the playoffs, but they couldn't get past the cards that day. But Jimmy, man, you bring back some memories too. I graduated from Little League, I coached the Pony League, and Jimmy, you remember that undefeated team we had. So, appreciate you being here, and bringing that memory to me. So, let's get back to business here. CJ, where are you? Okay, CJ, you know, all the things I said about the rest. You know, you started production, you know, we know your story, you know, we made a video out of it. So, and really appreciate you and what you've done, you know, starting it from production and really being a person going forward that interacts with customers and meets a lot of needs. I hear from the salespeople, and they just love everything you do and everything you add to them. You make their jobs easier, and you're very much appreciated. Yeah. And Courtney Carlin, I know you're here. Where are you? Courtney doesn't usually like to be recognized as well, but Courtney, I've joked with you in the past. I've set the pace for 23 consecutive years of being at board meetings, and I'm glad to say that Courtney's got the second highest hours, and I think both of our records are not going to be broken, Courtney. So I appreciate all you've done, starting on the floor like all these other guys, working your way up into different roles, and really adding a lot to our data analysis and what Chad's doing with DCOM. So again, appreciate you. And then Roy Graham couldn't make it here. He's our safety coordinator. Again, another guy that started in safety. And I can't forget Menna. Menna as well. So again, you know, you're part of the team over there. And again, all you guys, you started in production, not knowing if you were going to ever have an opportunity, and you stuck with it. And that's part of the big story. Once again, is all the opportunity that it creates. You've been at trade shows, you've seen the perception of our company on a national level, and it's significant, and it really makes you understand, you know, what the contribution we make in this natural foods industry that we're in, and we can all be proud of that. So, and a part of that is, you know, that these people that have worked their way up and given a lot of time and effort to our company for those opportunities. So, you know, again, I tell my story. I started out in production, kind of went through the same process. So I identify with it. I appreciate all the work that production does. I appreciate all the people that have really dedicated a lot of their time to improve themselves, but more importantly, improve the company. So thank you. Okay, we mentioned our Turlock, California acquisition. It's key in our, you know, it's going to be key in our success. You know, we've got a lot of competition right now that produces their almond butter in California. And what we were doing was we were buying almonds, shipping them to New York, and some cases shipping them back west. So Gracie's she's part of a two-person team. It's a very modest-sized company. We have 2 full-time employees there, and we got a staff of temporary people. So I really appreciate you, Gracie. You've come on, just showed a very good attitude. I think you, in my opinion, I think you enjoy this team, and the team enjoys you as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Gracie.
All right, I'm going to get in the management ranks a little bit. I want to name Jeremy Matados as well. I know Jeremy stood up with the production and warehouse crew, but I'll tell you what, we've introduced our new cracker line. There's a lot of things going on. You know, we're trying to produce crackers and cracker products in California, and ship those to the West Coast, to the East Coast. And I know that Bob has called you up a few times and saying, Jeremy, you might have a plan, but can you change that? Can you ship direct to my location? Or hey, look, can you stop that order and ask your guys to delay the shipment? And just a lot of things to try to meet this customer need. And you know what, Jeremy, the great thing I like about Jeremy is, number one, a lot of times when I call him up, he's already ahead of me. He's already said, I got that covered, Bob. Or, you know, I said, look, don't drop everything you're doing to get this done. just get back to me tomorrow. And generally speaking, about 10 minutes later, he calls me up, he said, I got that done. So, and I know, you know, I know what it is like. You come to work, you have a plan, and then all of a sudden, one phone call. And especially it's for my position, because I got to imagine that, you know, you think to yourself, geez, should I put the president of the company off and call it, do it tomorrow, or should I do it now? It puts a lot of pressure on you. So I appreciate what you do over there. I know you got a good crew too. Dan shaking his head, yes, best darn warehouse crew that you had ever. And, so with that, Dan, I want to recognize you as well. You know, a lot of pressure. You know, where'd Lloyd go?
He left.
Oh, okay, that's too bad. Because the reason is one thing I've noticed out of these purchasing guys and the stress they have on them. Not one of those guys keep their hair. They're all bald. I don't know what, but all I got to say is if you have a full head of hair and you want to keep it, don't get into purchasing. And I've seen it happen with 3 guys. It's unbelievable, especially if you're a woman. I rarely but no, it's again similar to Jeremy. You know, you don't hear from me for a while, and then all of a sudden the phone call comes. And Brandon, you know this. Hey, you know, where's my sorghum gum in Colorado? Or you know, why the heck are we getting aflatoxin in our office? So. And I know that you guys have limited control over that, but it was funny because I had a sales guy once. He was a professed atheist, right? But when times got tough, this made me laugh. He was a professed atheist, but when times got tough, what did he say to me? Well, that's your cross to bear, Bob. I always think of that. So when I think of that, you know, that's their cross to bear. You know, sometimes things are out of their control, but they have to react to that, and so it's part of the job. So appreciate Dan with over the years with, and mostly what you've the confidence that's been gained in the industry, because there was a time Lloyd's gone, so I can talk about Lloyd, right? In a good way, But like I said, I talked about Lloyd's. The positive attributes of Lloyd's, but there were a lot of people when Lloyd left the company, they were saying, what's going to happen to OneScan? You know, because he was such a leader in the organization at the time. And I think we know now what happened. You know, we had 2 guys that picked up the slack, we worked together, and business goes on. And again, Dan, I thank you for that. Sadir Kozarabu, new guy on the block, but you know, we brought you in to combine our sales and marketing efforts and to accelerate our new product development. And it's really, you and I know that we would stress the organization, but it's a stretching that had to happen, because on one hand you can't talk about more growth without being able to look at that product innovation. So thank you for you coming in and working. You know, obviously, you know, you've worked for big organizations, limited resources here, but I think you can see tonight the limited resources we have, the quality of people we have, and the dedication we have. So I thank you for your efforts and you know, coming into joining us and making us stronger. And one thing I'll say about Sadir as well is, I tell you what, I've never seen a guy peruse a wine list and pick out the best wines that you can imagine, especially in Argentina. So and if you need someone to slush the wine when you're at dinner, that's your man right there. So thanks, Sadir. But Chad Donovan, you told me you get a kick out of breaking me up and making me laugh. I kind of got a kick out of getting you choked up tonight. So there's Big Chad up here, you know. He's a big tough guy, right? You know, and tell you what, great guy, and I once said that, and Brandon remind me of this until I die. That I said, it's gonna be tough to replace Larry Filipski. And I said, we're not gonna find a local guy to come in here and do the job that Larry Filipski did. And all of a sudden, Chad Donovan had a homecoming stirring in his heart, and all of a sudden he worked at Batavia for a while, and I worked with Robert Pickering at ProNexus, and it's same thing. We went through the same thing with Larry. Worked with Robert. Same thing with we looking for CFOs. So I said enough. I worked with my HR director. I said enough. We need to call Robert Pickering and see what he has. And he lined us up with Chad. We met over in Batavia at the racetrack that night, and we had. I think I had a couple Heinekens that night.
Gross.
But we struck a deal, and again, with the limited resources, once again, and you have to make life choices, and it's sometimes hey, look, if it's truly about the salary, it's truly about the expected bonus and all that. Maybe this place isn't for you, but Chad came on board, and I've said this to the board. He's been a workhorse for this company. I think you'll all recognize that. And but also he's shown how he engages in teamwork, and on a personal side, how good he is to work with. And he's tough on people sometimes. There's no doubt about it. But he's really added to our organization. For me, I in high school, one of my best friends was Billy Donovan. And, Billy was a mentor of mine, and he was before his time. And with him, it was always, he wanted to see his friends be successful, whether it be in Monday or whatever they did. And I remember he went to Annapolis to Naval Academy, and I went to Alfred, and never really realized the magnitude of the world he stepped into until 9/11. And he lost his life. Now I can't share my gratitude with Bill today, and I can't show him that, hey, look, Bill, we talked about being successful and really furthering your career and what you could do to be meaningful in life. And I can't do that today. But you know what? I can say this: a distant cousin of his came to them day and became the CFO once again in Butter. I can say that, and I'm appreciative of that. Can't connect with Bill today, but I can recognize that for me, Bill Donovan will live on in Monday through Chad Donovan, and I really appreciate that. I haven't said that to you either, but that is true. Now I know it's a distant cousin relationship, but you're a Donovan, just like he was, and that's meaningful to me. And when you think of why things happen, and you think, gee, this didn't work out the way I expected, but I can look at situations like that and realize that, yeah, look, things are still happening on our behalf. People in your past, they might not be with you today, but they're still making a difference in your life through their family. So I'm very grateful for that. Grateful for that guy right there. Just been a great addition to our company, and it was great working with Larry. But Larry, we found a way to replace you, and that's what happens, just like me. The same thing's going to happen with me, Larry. And I've talked to the board that it's all in timing, and Chad's going to be a great future leader for this company. And I don't think that many people will argue with me about that, and that's what I can feel good about. So thanks a lot, Chad. All right, our sales department. I bet that our sales department, thanks to Bob's recognizing all these people, but he's not going to recognize me, because you know what? We're those people that we're not from Nunday. Bob doesn't see us all the time, but I do. And I've managed sales. You know, back in the day, I never thought I would ever manage sales in my whole life. When I was an engineer, you know, people would joke about me even being in charge of sales. But all I can say is that this group, Craig Keating didn't come tonight, is that right?
He couldn't make it, he wanted to be.
But no, that's fine. No, I'll prop up Kristen and Gavin. You know, these people, their travel schedule is just tireless. You know, when we're all, you know, we might work long hours during the day, but we get to go home, we get to sleep in our own bed, we get to see our families at night, it might be for just a couple hours. But, you know, but we're not moving all over the country. When people ask me that, geez, when you're retired, you know, you're gonna be able to travel more, won't you like that? And I said, absolutely not. But it's part of their job, and they do it tirelessly. And one thing about salespeople too that I'd like to recognize is I always think of sales, you know, almost like, you know, a football team driving for the goal line. You're driving for the goal line, trying to make that last sale or make that customer commitment. But the thing is, what's different about your job rather than the rest of us, you know, it's like, you know, I can plan out the next day, I can have notes on my table, I can have computer files created, but I don't have the competition coming in and trying to disrupt me, or trying to, you know, basically outdo me, or necessarily just erase my work. And that's the one thing in the sales world that I want us to recognize here. Salespeople always have the opposition just trying to push them back, not letting them score, and it happens all the time. And you guys have to keep moving that ball forward and trying to get to that goal line. That's one thing, you know, that's not recognized in the sales world, and that's a true, that's just part of the job. Not once did you guys ever complain to me about that, but that's the reality of it, and I just want to recognize that today. I don't know if it's ever been talked about that way in my history with the company, but I just appreciate, you know, all the never giving up, always pushing forward, and not letting the opposition drag you down. And I think that's important, and really want to call that out in front of this group. It's not necessarily the glamorous lifestyle of being out on the travel circuit and eating dinners at fancy restaurants every night. No, that loses appeal pretty darn quickly. And but that's your life. You do it for once again. So just appreciate what you do on a continuous daily basis. And more importantly than that, you know, take the time out of your schedule. You know, Gavin traveled all the way from Arizona. You know, Kristen, you traveled from a trade show in Las Vegas, and you spent about 6 hours at home.
Yeah.
But you thought it was important enough to come here and set up this great party tonight on my behalf. And all I can say is I really appreciate that. It wasn't absolutely necessary, but you still did it. And you had all the reason to make the phone call and say, hey, look guys, take over for me. I'm not going to be able to do that. So just want to thank you for that. Gavin, same thing. We've gone through a lot of things. You know, you were handpicked by Charles Harris, and but you know what? That was the best decision I ever made was listening to Charles Harris on that one. And you know that I didn't agree with Charles on everything. But so appreciate the sales force. Pass that on to the folks in your departments and the areas where you work.
Well, thank you, Doc.
Yeah. Jason, is this being taped?
Yeah, is this meeting being recorded?
I hope it.
Is that head of the table right there?
Right, yeah, I think
John Jones.
Ah.
right under my nose. No, that's super. Keep it up, man. All right. I've got my family here tonight. And just want to recognize, you know, my brother and sister, Rachel Howell, Rachel Housley, whatever you like. Rachel, my brother Jordy showing up, and just appreciate you taking this time out. You know, this is, you know, I'm not gonna retire very often. This is the type of activity, it's great to get together, it's great to have my family be part of an event like this. And, the only thing I'm gonna say is we still gotta find a way to drag our other brother to events like this. Whether he's dragging, kicking and screaming, whatever, we have to kidnap the guy. We just gotta work at that. You know, I've gotten a little bit tired of chasing him down, but again, he should be here tonight. I'm sure there's a reason why he isn't, you know. He's still my brother, I love him, but let's think of the night, and let's just think of other times that, you know, we can share events as a family like this together. So I appreciate you being here. Okay, my dad called me up this morning. He intended on being here and wasn't able to attend, but my mother's here, along with Ray Ward. So Ray, appreciate you being here. I hope I'm not keeping you up too late. Right?
I got no cows to milk.
Okay. But no, I really appreciate you coming with my mom.
Yep.
And I just want to talk about just growing up as a kid, and we lived on a small farm on Baker Road in Dalton for about 10 years. And it's funny, I think about that farm 10 years, I think about my life being 61 years old, and some of the best memories of my life were back living on that little baky farm on Baker Road. I remember cleaning cap guns, I remember cutting wood and doing hay in the summer, and all the jobs I absolutely hated. Boy, oh boy, what I would do to go back and be in those times again, and what enjoyment that was. You know, I also appreciate some flexibility, because back when my mother, she had a lot of ambitions of me playing piano, and
She still does.
making me go to those piano lessons, and finally she gave up on that and just let me shoot baskets in the barn. My dad put me up a basketball hoop in the barn. Piano playing was over after that. And, you know, in the times that, you know, my mother is a lover of horses, and there's nothing better than she would have liked me to be really be involved in horse riding, and I just as soon ride my motorcycle. So my mother was, you know, even though in her heart I always felt those are things that she would have liked me to steer toward, just wasn't for me. So she never necessarily put the pressure on me. She let me slide on that, so I appreciate that. 40 years ago, you probably wondered what the heck I was going to achieve in life. I think probably my biggest accomplishments at that time, I think I played soccer in college for a little bit. I used to play 100 games of slow pitch softball, and the college professors the engineering professors at Alfred, they liked me so much down there, they asked me to stay an extra semester. But at that time, they were, you know, those were my biggest accomplishments, and probably both my parents probably were wondering, what's this kid going to make of himself? But you know, I was still at 38 years old. I was, you know, I was still taking graduate classes at RIT, and just took a while to think for things to fall in place. But I think coming here tonight, I think you can understand. It took me a little while to figure some things out, but I think it's okay now. So, yeah. You know, one big thing that happened is my parents were instrumental. You know, there was a transition that happened in my life, and, you know, and I became, I had joint custody of my kids that are here tonight, and I had the opportunity in 2002. You know, that was a great opportunity for me in 2002. 3 great things happened for me. Number one, my kids were allowed to come back and live with me in Nunde, and I couldn't have done it without my parents. You know, that allowed me to continue my career, be a parent, take care of my career, and also do the best job I could in taking care of my kids. My parents were pretty huge. My mom and my dad, and my mom's here tonight, really were helpful in allowing me to pull that off. So very appreciative of that. But, you know, also in 2002, I started on the board at once again Nut Butter, and crazy thing happened in 2002 as well. I attended my 20-year class reunion, and that's when I reunited with my current wife, Mary. So it's a lot of things turned around in 2002, and again, talked about people adding to your life and helping you be successful. You know, that was a pivotal year. So I really appreciate, it was a long, winding road, but it's kind of straightened out a little bit, and I think we're going to be okay. So I just want to thank you to my mom, and I want you to give her a big Okay, a couple more pages here. I want to recognize my kids. I really miss, you know, those Thousand Island trips we used to make, building that clubhouse and the background. And, you know, traveling to all those AAU basketball tournaments, even though it was one of those, it usually was in one of those rusty truck cars that was described earlier.
Windstar.
Started with a screwdriver.
As Eddie said, I was very wise in my automobile selection. But, you know, my kids went through some tough times. You know, and a lot of you went to school with them, a lot of younger, you understand a little bit. But they went through some tough times, you know, and I was a father, did everything I could for them. But there was always something lacking a little bit, and they just, you know, battled their way through that. And I just want to let you know I appreciate you as my kids, and just I'm very happy that you were able to make the night. You're very important to me. You always will be, and I just want you to know I love you guys. Last but not least, I think it's hot enough in here, isn't it? But when I was sitting in high school graduation, you know, they told me I would retire at 61 and be a CEO of a $70 million company in Nunde, and be married to a girl that I took to my junior prom. I would have said, "You're crazy. Can't happen, right? This can't happen." I wouldn't have thought it was possible. And now it has. Now it has. I talked about that road. It's kind of straightened out a little bit, but I was been fortunate enough. I went to the obviously my 20-year class reunion, and Mary and I kind of connected again. Became married soon after that. But when I was younger, I was always good friends with his brother Joe. And I have to admit this, I like Joe. Joe's a good guy, but I was good friends with Joe because he had a sister named Mary. But you know, Mary's been my best friend for a long time. And you know, things happen in life, and one thing that happened when we were married in 2008. I have to remember a lot of dates. But we were married in 2008, and I always remember a good friend of ours came up to me afterwards, shook my hand after the wedding, and says, "You know, you're about 20 years too late." you know, and I stopped him, I said, look, and we all know this tonight, because of some of the stories that have been told. Some things just have to play out, things happen for a reason. And sometimes things are a little bit unorthodox, but you look at the process, you look at, you know, how we've gone through tough situations, challenges, and in the end, you know, you come to some final conclusion that if you're with the people you love, you're successful. That's all that counts. It doesn't necessarily matter what road you took or what things you might have thought you could have achieved or would have achieved. What's important is that you're with the people you love, you sincerely are grateful, and you're just gonna appreciate the people that allowed you to be successful. So that's what tonight's about. It's really about recognizing the people that have been in your life that have allowed you to be successful. And that's what I want to impress upon people. Yes, the company's had some success. I appreciate all the recognition, but are you with the ones you love, and are you content in that, or are you at peace with being able to just be able to recognize and keep moving ahead and just having a fulfilling life? And that's one thing I can say that I have had. And there's many people that aren't here today, many people that are, and I'm just overwhelmed with gratefulness, and I'm so happy that my wife has shared my challenges. She shared my commitment. You know, you talk about the Saturday work, and you know, just the commitment I've made. She knows more about cracker sandwich manufacturing by conversations I've had on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, because we work with an organization. You guys know Alex Press. That guy's nonstop. He's working all the time. So what do? I talk about crackers on Saturday night. So, you know, my wife is sacrificed, and I really appreciate what you've added to my life, and you know, and the whole family that we have. You know, we have a split family, and what I've recognized is that between Mary's kids and my kids, you know, looking from the outside in, you might not even know that we're a family that's been joined from two different sides, and it's just something special. So just like this company is special, that it's a combination of just people that just allow us to be grateful for what we have. So Mary, thanks for being my best friend, and I love you very much. So I don't know what more I can say, but
Yeah, Bob, tell everybody you have dessert.
I think it's warm enough here that the frosting is probably melted off. But and I noticed that some people have had to leave, so I've been pretty long-winded. So for the people that have stuck around, the drinks are on Chad.
Bullshit.